So, before I begin this story, I just want to start by saying I don't believe people can stay on Earth after they die in the form of a spirit. I believe a spirit is almost always a negative entity or a malicious being. At first, things started off innocently. You know how you feel a tug at your blanket and your foot being pulled off the bed. It can easily be mistaken for falling asleep and slumping suddenly, and it's left at that. A couple nights, I did feel my foot being yanked and would report it back to my parents, thinking maybe it was them playing a trick on me, but they would have no recollection. The first real time I can remember was my dad mentioning at night he was seeing a little girl walking into his room. He had mistaken this figure for me a couple nights. Then, one of those nights, he saw there was no face and no real features. Unfortunately though, one of those nights it was me. And he grabbed me around my neck and squeezed, and I said, "Daddy, it's me." And he let go and said my name. He was so frightened that he had hurt me, and he had told me and my mom what he had been encountering. Things only got weirder from then on. After the ghostly apparition of a girl, my dad saw a stingray-esque creature float toward him on his side of the bed at night. I believe he said that it also in a way seemed like a man. He said he felt angry and not scared when it had approached him. This went on for a while, just as it did with the girl. One day when my parents had gotten into an argument, my mother had ran to the basement. My guess was probably to yell because she was upset. And all the lights were off when she went down there. She went from sobbing and exclaiming to yelling in fear for my father. She said all around her there was laughing, and not happy, cheerful laughter like "I'm laughing at you" laughter. In her experience, she said it felt like there was no escape from the basement, like she was in an ocean of sound, not knowing which way was up or which way was down. Eventually, the time came for one of these entities to approach me. I remember being up in my grandmother's room listening to music on her bed. No one was home. As I recall, I lifted my headphones from one of my ears and heard a loud exhale that sounded like the word "hey" in the corner of my eye, and that same time I saw a bluish face with an angry expression just for a second, but it was very much there. And I got freaked out and ran downstairs and called my parents and stayed on the phone with them until they got back home. Needless to say, I didn't feel comfortable staying home alone for a while after that. Doesn't mean that I didn't, because I was pretty much a hermit in those days, and, well, I still kind of am. Closer to the time when we started to go to that church, I had times where I really didn't feel like going and would pretend to sleep or put myself to make something right around the time that we would be getting ready to go. My mom and grandma would end up going without me, and during one of those times I stayed home, I was cleaning up around, feeling guilty that I didn't go, and I heard a piece of paper crumple quickly and was thrown past my head. I was bending over throwing away some trash, and I stopped moving completely and looked around me thinking that someone had come home, but I was still visibly alone. I went outside after that for a little while because I had a strange vibe staying inside alone. Like I was being watched by something. One of the last straws was when I had gotten in trouble with my father over a message I had sent to one of my friends over MySpace, I believe it was during that time. He had misinterpreted a message I sent to a friend of mine and would not take my explanation for it, and I got so angry and so upset for what he had said to me. I ran to my sister's room, and she wasn't in it at the time, and I wanted to be alone. and I was laying on the floor crying. I felt something caress the top of my head, like a mother's caress of reassurance that everything was going to be okay. And then I felt my hair, which was pinched under me, move, and I heard something whisper, "Stay. Stay." I stopped crying in that moment, and I could hear the bathroom door that was connected to my sister's room open slightly. And I whispered back, "No." The door to the bathroom opened all the way, and I felt my hair move from under me and yanked towards the bathroom when I got up and left the room and went to my mother. This was when we finally felt enough was enough and tried to have something arranged with the people of the church to come. Before they came, about 2 weeks before, my father was very upset all the time, like upset over everything. And he wasn't like that before. We just noticed that during this time it was getting worse and worse, closer to the time that we were to have the exorcism performed. And it was like whatever was in our house was leeching off of his energy, of his negative energy, and possessing him. Quite frankly, it's the only thing that I could think of. One of these times, actually, close to the people of the church coming, my mom was praying because he was breaking things left and right in anger and cursing. My mom was praying for him out loud, and he started saying blasphemous things. And my dad was a believer too, he believed in God, and he was spewing all of this hateful stuff out loud. And I remember my sister and I, we were just like, what's happening? Like, why is he talking like that? It really baffles you when you know someone is not a certain way and they start behaving out of character like that. Something is terribly wrong. And he admits now he felt like he was out of himself, like he was losing his mind, he was going crazy, like he had no control. And I'm mentioning this because it's not just my story, it's our story. We all went through it together. Maybe 2 days before they came to perform the exorcism, my father had came in to my room. He just bursted in and was like, why did you close the door on me? And I was so confused because I wasn't near the door. I was listening to music on my headphones, walking in and out of my sister's room. And I told him that I didn't close the door on you. And he got upset and he was like, you said no, and I felt you push the door against me. And I said, that wasn't me. Don't you see how far away I am from the door? I didn't even know you were coming in. And he just looked at me. And said, well, I guess it was her. And he looked past me and he went to use the bathroom downstairs. I still get chills having to retell these stories with the thought that someone listening would think this is just another creepypasta or a made-up story. But ask anyone in my family and they would tell you. I actually had a friend named Becky that I came to about the bathroom story because it had freaked me out so bad, and I felt I had no one outside of my mom and dad to speak to about it. She never for a moment questioned me for it, so I was grateful for her in those times. When it came time for them to perform the exorcism on the house, it was maybe 3 or 4 of the churchgoers who were elderly people. We had told them a bit about our story and they wanted to help, and by the grace of God they did. I remember we put our dog named King, who was an Akita, in the back room, and we told him to stay. They got their Bibles out and read, and then did a prayer holding hands with their eyes closed. I was upstairs praying on my own, praying it would be over, praying that this would be the end of all that was happening. Then I heard my dog barking and scratching and pushing the door like I had never heard before downstairs, but I continued to keep my eyes closed. From upstairs in my bedroom, I heard a loud thud, and one of the women became winded, and she said in Spanish, "Keep praying." The Bible that was laying flat had actually came up and hit her. I wish we had video for this, but you'll have to take my word for it. Maybe it's better that it wasn't captured anyway. It's not like video manipulation wouldn't have been called down on it. But this is what happened. The praying continued for about half an hour, and my dog had stopped barking, and I opened my eyes and crept down the stairs. The attitude and the aura of my family had changed drastically after that. It felt like a heavy burden had been lifted from us and the house. The visions didn't altogether stop, but there wasn't any more encounters that really scared us or seemed threatening. For the most part, the house is calm. I included in the beginning of this video that I didn't believe people became ghosts because I believe this romanticizes the use of Ouija boards and finding out key evidence about events to try and solve any underlying issue. These things are only to tempt people to explore into a world they know nothing about. These things will not bring a closing to a person's life that you think is left behind. If in theory a person is left behind, it is only the hatred that is captured and left. Because for what other reason would a human have to cling on? I feel these are demons and should not be played with or spoken to like they are people. Please do not think that you can solve your issues with communication with them. This can only give the spirit power. Again, if you made it to the end of this video, I thank you for staying. If this is something that you enjoy listening to, please comment with your thoughts, leave a like, and even subscribe if you don't mind. This is Melody Mind, and thank you for listening.